In this video, I'll be showing the process of stage biting an aquatint. I'll be etching a copper plate to create a full value image. Here we see the value stages that we'll be using to make the image. This example plate has been submerged in the acid 3 times, once for 2 minutes, once for 4 minutes, and once for 8 minutes, meaning that the total time it's been in the acid is 14 minutes, and this achieves a nice rich black. To prepare the copper plate, we cut it to size, file the edges, polish the surface, and then degrease the surface. The rosin box contains a fine rosin powder. I start by agitating or stirring up the fine dust particles in the box. Then the degreased copper plate is carefully placed inside of the box so that the rosin dust can settle onto it. This usually takes about 5 minutes. We're looking for a 50% coverage so that the copper still looks like copper when you view it from the top, but looks like rosin when you view it from the side. The rosin is then burnt onto the surface of the plate with a propane tank. And at that point, the rosin is sealed onto the surface. This rosin will act as a resist to the acid. Here you can see the fine texture of the rosin on the surface. To prepare the image, I'm going to go through my sketchbook and find something that I'd like to turn into an etching. I'm going to modify it and copy it up to the size of the plate using my printer. I'll resolve the composition and reposition things until I get it just the way I want it. Then I'll trace off the design, making sure to fine-tune and adjust. The image is then flipped mirror image and transferred to the copper plate through a sheet of iron oxide paper. At this point, my image is transferred to my rosined copper plate, and I'm ready to start drawing on the plate with acid-resistant materials before putting it into the acid. I'll plan to put it in the acid 5 different times in order to get a step stair of values from light gray to black. And so the first thing I want to do is to block out or protect the copper from the acid wherever the image is going to be totally white. So in looking at my sketch, that means probably the gaps between these bricks and maybe this post here and a little bit on the back of the head and the doorway here. That's the only things I'm going to draw on this first time before putting the plate in the acid. The materials I'm going to be drawing with are anything that can resist the liquid from getting in there. Primarily I work with litho crayons, sharpened to a fine point, and starting with the number 3 Korn's litho crayon, which is a medium kind of grease content. As I go on, I'll go to a number 2 and finally to a number 1. And the reason I use this is because it plays across the sandpaper-like surface of the rosined plate, leaving a deposit, but doesn't totally cover it up. And so I can achieve a range of values, a subtlety of textures through this combination of litho crayon on the rosined plate. Now, if you've ever done a lithograph, if you're drawn with a litho crayon on a litho stone, you'll feel a similar kind of textural response. I'll also be working later with Sharpie paint pens of various colors. Each one of those will stop out the same way regardless of the color, but it helps me to keep track of which stage I'm on by having different colorations. And also stop out varnish or asphaltum, which are tar-like blockouts. I'll be using a brush to paint those on in the latter stages. So in the beginning I'll be working mostly with the litho crayon, and then I'll build that up more and build that up more, and then I'll shift over to these other things which totally block out and protect the plate when I don't want the acid getting in the latter stages. So it takes quite a while to draw through these various stages of the aquatint, and at each stage I'll try to draw, maybe 1/5 of the plate, because it's going in 5 times. And I just want to make sure that the plate surface looks really interesting, that the composition looks interesting even though it's abstracted. And then when it's ready to commit to the acid, I'll just double check it and make sure everything looks good on the surface of that plate. I've been doing this for a long time, and so I'm comfortable looking at an image like this and saying I need to draw with this black stuff where it's going to be white. I'm drawing in the negative. I'm also drawing in the mirror image, and sometimes I'll be drawing upside down to reach that part of the plate. So I'm thinking in abstract terms through a lot of this process. For beginners though, it can be helpful to print out a negative of your image. And then you're thinking about, I'm putting the black material where I want it to be blocked out, and it looks black in this negative image. So that's the basic procedure, and now I'll go ahead and get started. Okay, now that the image has been drawn, we're ready to place the plate into the tank of acid and do the first of what will be 5 bites for 5 different values in this aquatint image. First thing I'm going to do is prepare a handle with a piece of duct tape, and I'm going to put this securely on the back of the plate. Then fold this over, and I'll use this throughout the 5 bites of the plate. The back has been spray painted. The edges look pretty good, and I've already reviewed the image, and so the copper is showing everywhere I want it to be a light gray, and it's blocked out everywhere I want it to be close to white. So now we're ready to bite the plate. Let's go over to the acid tank. This is the ferric chloride, and it's just being agitated. And I'll go ahead and start my 1-minute timer. Just 1 minute here. And place the plate in the acid. Clamp it on so I don't drop it. So now the acid is in there. Anywhere it can get into the copper, it's starting to eat away, it's starting to bite away at those molecules, and it'll take the copper down to a low level, which will print as a light gray. There goes my timer. Let me take it out. I'm going to bring it over to the sink and rinse it off. The copper is now a little bit red in tonality, a little hot. Over to the sink. And I'm going to rinse it in a tray of water. Get the ferric chloride off of the plate and the tape. You want to be careful not to blot or agitate or smear the litho crayon, so it stays right where it is, and we'll just build up on it. Okay, so that was the last of 5 times in the acid, 5 separate stages from light gray to black. Where the copper is still visible will be black or close to it. So now it's time to clean all the layers of acid-resistant drawing materials off of the plate. I'm starting with mineral spirits to get the tar, the asphaltum, off. And then I'll go to denatured alcohol to get the magic marker and the rosin from the aquatint process off. Okay, now to the denatured alcohol. And there's still a little bit of other drawing material trapped underneath here with a little bit more mineral spirits. And we can see the image in the plate in the positive. So what we see now are the grooves in the plate, and what I'm going to do is ink the plate up, pushing ink down into the grooves, and then I'll finish by wiping the surface clean. And once we've gone through all the work of committing the image to the plate, we can print it many times exactly the same way. We can also make corrections for anything that didn't quite work out, but the plan is to have it as much to finished and complete at this point as possible. Wiping the excess ink off the surface with a dirty tarlatan. Starting to see how it's going to print. I'll go to a cleaner tarlatan. And the important thing here is to realize that you're not pushing down into the plate. You want the ink to stay in those recesses. It's more a matter of just massaging the surface. And this just polishes the very surface of the plate, the white areas. The excess ink off the edges, and then we're ready to print. And I've got a piece of paper which has been soaking in the water. It's nice and damp, so it can go down into those recesses and pick up the ink.